"You're too boring to be loved," my wife said during couples therapy. I looked at her, stood up, and handed her divorce papers right there in the office. That was a month ago. Now she's texting me from a one-bedroom apartment she can't afford, and I'm finally at peace. Hey, before we move on to the video, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Thanks. She didn't even flinch when she said it. Just sat there on that little beige couch in the therapist's office, her legs crossed, arms folded across her chest, like she was bored at a meeting she didn't want to attend in the first place. Her voice didn't even crack. It was flat, practiced, almost like she'd been saving that line for the perfect moment. "I mean, come on," she added, smirking slightly. "Be honest. You don't really think someone like me could stay in love with someone who gets excited about printer upgrades and meal prepping?" The silence that followed made my ears ring. The therapist, Susan, a middle-aged woman with the permanently raised eyebrows of someone who's seen too much, leaned forward slightly. I could tell she wanted to step in, but she hesitated. She'd seen how every time she nudged Vanessa to reflect, Vanessa would talk circles around her, turn it into a joke, make her seem uptight. This time, she just waited. So did I. I was still staring at my wife. "My wife," I said, quietly. "You don't love me?" She laughed. Actually laughed. "Don't be so dramatic, Ethan." "That's not what I said. I said I can't. It's not personal. Some people just don't light a fire, you know? You're sweet, reliable, stable, but you're not exciting." I thought that would be enough. I was wrong. I think I sat there for another minute or two, watching her, hearing every word bounce around my skull like a pinball machine from hell. She kept talking, too, about how she had tried, really tried, to make it work. About how maybe if I were more spontaneous, or a little less rigid, maybe we wouldn't be here. When she finally stopped, Susan turned to me and said softly, "Ethan, do you want to respond?" I looked down at the floor. My hand was resting on my knee, perfectly still. I could hear my heart beating, feel the heat rushing to my face, but I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just said, "No, I think I've heard enough." Vanessa rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on. Don't be such a baby. I came here to be honest." I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out my wallet, and slid my card across the table to Susan. "I'll cover today's session," I said. Then I stood up. Vanessa looked genuinely surprised. "What? You're just leaving?" "I think that's for the best." Ethan, seriously." She actually laughed again, like I was the one being ridiculous. But I was already at the door. I didn't slam it. Didn't look back. That was 31 days ago. She came home that night to a quiet house. My car wasn't in the driveway. My keys weren't on the hook by the front door. My shoes, the same ones she called Dad's shoes every time I wore them, were gone from the rack. I didn't leave a note. Since then, she's messaged me 37 times. Called 12. Emailed twice. Sent a voice memo once, which I didn't open. The last thing she said in that voicemail, according to the preview text, was, "I know I was harsh, but can we please just talk?" We can't. And I'm not mad anymore. I'm just done. I've never been the dramatic type. If you asked anyone who knows me, really knows me, they'd probably describe me as dependable. Steady. Quiet. Maybe even a little predictable, in a comforting way. I've had the same job for 9 years. I cook most of my meals at home. I read nonfiction before bed. And I genuinely enjoy doing laundry on Saturday mornings because it starts my weekend off clean. Vanessa used to say those things were adorable. Back when we first met, she said I made her feel safe. Like she didn't have to keep running anymore. Like she could finally breathe. We met at a mutual friend's housewarming party. I was standing by the kitchen island, awkwardly sipping a warm soda and trying not to look like I hated being there. She walked up, dropped a bowl of chips next to me, and asked, "Do you think they'll notice if I leave in the next 10 minutes? We both laughed. Then we started talking. Vanessa was smart, beautiful, quick with a joke, the kind of person who knew how to command a room without even trying. She was the opposite of me in almost every way, and for a while, that felt magical. Like we completed each other. She brought out a side of me I'd kept tucked away, spontaneous, silly, open. I grounded her. At least, that's what I told myself. We got married after 2 years. She moved into the townhouse I'd bought 5 years earlier. I'd worked hard for that place. I had been saving since my early 20s, determined not to rent forever. It wasn't flashy, but it was mine. Clean lines, sturdy furniture, quiet neighborhood. Vanessa called it suburbia with a death wish, but said she'd make it feel alive. And she did. For a while, colorful throw pillows appeared. Vinyl records played in the background. She filled the fridge with things I couldn't pronounce but learned to cook anyway. I adapted. I wanted to. Being with her felt like getting a second life. But over time, the comments started. Small things at first. You always cook the same 3 meals. We should spice things up. Why do you always wear blue? Do you even own another color? I love you, but sometimes I feel like I'm married to a filing cabinet. I laughed them off. Thought maybe she was just being playful. I didn't want to be oversensitive, but it kept going. She'd roll her eyes when I suggested movie nights. She'd scoff if I turned down last-minute parties because I had work the next day. At brunch with her friends, she'd joke, "Ethan's idea of fun is organizing our spice rack alphabetically." And yes, he actually did that once. They laughed. I smiled. Pretended I didn't feel a little smaller every time. I noticed she started going out without telling me. At first, it was casual, drinks after work. Then weekends with the girls. Then full days when she wouldn't come home until after midnight. She'd never say where she'd been. Just shrug and say, "Don't wait up next time." It's not cute. Still, I tried to hold it together. I planned date nights. Cooked new recipes. Read articles about emotional intimacy. When she forgot our 4th anniversary, I ordered takeout, lit candles, and waited. She walked in at 11 p.m. wearing heels and someone else's perfume. Said she lost track of time. I cleaned up dinner without saying a word. A month later, I asked if we could try therapy. I thought maybe we were just in a rough patch. I was willing to put in the work. I always had been. Vanessa's response: "Sure. Maybe therapy will finally help you loosen up." She said it with a grin. Like the whole idea was an inside joke I wasn't in on. We started seeing Susan, a licensed couples therapist, 2 months before it all fell apart. The first few sessions were rough, but I tried. I was honest about my feelings, careful with my words, and open to change. Vanessa talked circles around everything. She complained about how I wasn't fun anymore. How I used to surprise her with things, but now I just went through the motions. That every day with me felt the same. I told her I was trying, that I still loved her. Her answer? "Love isn't enough if I feel like I'm with a robot." The worst part? Susan didn't stop her. Not really. I think she was trying to stay neutral, to give Vanessa room to express herself. But it felt like I was just sitting there getting carved apart piece by piece while someone took notes. Only one person ever quietly acknowledged what was happening. Our mutual friend, Jenna. We'd known her since the beginning. She actually introduced us. Jenna stayed close with both of us, but I always had the sense that she saw through Vanessa's performance. A few months ago, at a dinner party, I stepped outside for a breather. Jenna followed me. She didn't say much, just stood beside me for a minute. Then, almost as an afterthought, she said, "You deserve to be seen, Ethan." That stuck with me. Not that I did anything about it at the time. I still believed Vanessa loved me, that maybe I just needed to be more exciting, more spontaneous, more something. I was willing to be that, if it meant saving what we had. But I understand now, there was never going to be enough I could become to fill whatever void Vanessa was pretending I created. She wasn't bored with me. She was just bored, and I was convenient. And still, I stayed. Right up until the moment she looked me in the eye and said I was too boring to be loved. After that, I didn't feel hurt. I felt clear. The thing about slow cruelty is that you don't realize it's happening until you're already drowning in it. If Vanessa had screamed at me, or thrown things, or stormed out, maybe then I would have had an easier time drawing a line. But her weapon was mockery, dismissal, casual humiliation passed off as jokes, death by 1,000 tiny cuts. And I kept trying to convince myself it wasn't as bad as it felt. Like the night we hosted some of her coworkers at our place. I'd spent the entire afternoon cleaning, made an elaborate dinner from scratch, even bought the fancy wine she liked to show off. I barely sat down the whole evening. Everyone was laughing, chatting. Vanessa was in her element. Then one of the guests asked how we met. I smiled and started to tell the story about that housewarming party, about the chip she dropped next to me, about how she made me laugh in the first 5 minutes. Halfway through, Vanessa interrupted. "Oh my God, Ethan, we've heard this a million times," she said, giggling. "He's such a dork. He remembers every detail like it's a Nicholas Sparks novel. He even knows what I was wearing." She turned to her coworker. "And he wonders why I don't jump his bones every night." Everyone laughed. Except one guy. He glanced at me for a second. I could tell he didn't think it was funny either. But he didn't say anything. Neither did I. I wanted to believe she was just nervous. trying too hard, that it wasn't really about me. But it kept happening. She'd make fun of my dad clothes in public, criticize my music tastes, roll her eyes if I ordered the same sandwich at our regular place. Once, when we ran into some old friends downtown, she said, right in front of them, "Ethan's the kind of guy who would die happy if he could organize my spice rack." Oh wait, he did. They laughed. I laughed, too. Later that night, I stood in front of the spice rack and stared at it for 5 minutes. I didn't remember organizing it, but I believed her anyway. I started wondering if maybe I really was boring. Maybe she had a point. The worst moment before the therapy blow-up was on our anniversary. Our 5th anniversary. I had planned the whole evening, a reservation at the same little Italian restaurant where I first told her I loved her, followed by a night at the same boutique hotel we stayed in after our wedding. She never showed up. I waited for an hour before I finally texted her. "Hey, everything okay?" She replied 30 minutes later. "Girls' night. I told you. I needed this." She hadn't told me. I sat in that restaurant with a cooling plate of pasta and a glass of wine meant for a toast. I didn't respond. I just paid the bill, walked out, and drove home alone. When she stumbled in around 1 a.m., half drunk and glowing from dancing, she laughed when she saw the hotel bag by the door. "Oh, was that tonight?" That was when I first felt something inside me crack. But I didn't say anything. I cleaned up the bag, went to bed without a word. The next day, she bought me a coffee and said I needed to lighten up. "You take things too personally," she told me. "We're not characters in a love story. We're just two people trying not to be miserable." I didn't ask for flowers. I didn't ask for constant attention. I just wanted respect, partnership, kindness. I asked her again if she'd consider therapy. She agreed, but only after saying, "Sure, if it helps you stop sulking." The first few sessions were one long humiliation. She dominated the conversation every time. Spoke like she was performing for an invisible audience. Smirked when I tried to bring up things that had hurt me. Talked over me, cut me off. Even Susan seemed unsure how to rein her in. In one session, I brought up the anniversary dinner. Told her how it made me feel. How I had been looking forward to that night for weeks. Vanessa laughed. "You actually kept the hotel bag by the door? You're so dramatic. That's why I didn't text you back. I knew you'd turn it into a rom-com scene." Susan tried to redirect, but the damage was done. I sat there, looking at the woman I'd shared 5 years with. The woman I had built a life around. And all I saw was someone who felt inconvenienced by my feelings. That night, I sat in my car for almost an hour before going inside. I remember thinking, if I disappear, will she even notice? And I think I already knew the answer. The last therapy session before I walked out was the culmination of everything. It was the first time I saw it clearly how deep her contempt for me ran. Vanessa leaned back on the couch and said, in a bored voice, "Sometimes I flirt with other people just to feel something. Being with Ethan is like living in a padded room. Nothing sharp. Nothing dangerous. Just beige." That was it. That was the moment. I didn't get angry. I didn't raise my voice. I just felt done. She didn't see it. She thought I'd keep coming back, keep apologizing for being boring, keep paying for the sessions, keep cooking her dinner and making sure the lights got fixed and the bills got paid. But something had already shifted inside me. And what Vanessa didn't know, what she never bothered to find out, was that the Ethan she saw was only part of the picture. I wasn't just the quiet guy who meal prepped and wore dad clothes. I was also the man who had built a life strong enough to walk away from her without a single word. After that last session, I didn't go home. I drove straight to a little diner across town, the kind that never changed its menu and still had laminated placemats from the 90s. I sat in the corner booth, ordered a coffee I didn't drink, and stared out the window for a long time. I wasn't sad. That surprised me. I wasn't angry either. I'd already burned through all that in the months before. What I felt now was calm, cold, maybe, but clear. There was no moment of revenge fantasy. No dramatic music in my head. Just a steady realization. I was done explaining my worth to someone who didn't want to see it. I pulled out my phone and texted my lawyer, "Move forward. Let's get it started." Vanessa had no idea what she had walked into when she married me. She thought I was just the safe bet, the fallback guy, the one you settle down with when you're done chasing chaos. And sure, I wasn't flashy. I didn't post curated vacation selfies or party until 3 a.m. But I'd been building something while she was showing off. I had savings, real savings. While Vanessa was bouncing between jobs that fed her soul, I'd been promoted twice in 3 years. I had stock options, a Roth IRA, multiple investments. She never asked. She didn't care. The house we lived in? I bought it 6 years before I met her. Paid it off completely just after our wedding, using a bonus I never told her about. I'd placed it in a trust under my name before we got married, on the advice of the same lawyer who would now handle my divorce. I remember how annoyed Vanessa was when I suggested a prenup. She laughed, called it unromantic, but agreed after barely reading it. She thought it was a formality. It wasn't. The prenup had a specific clause. If either party emotionally abandoned the relationship or showed intent to withdraw from shared marital duties, verbalized or written, they forfeited claims to shared property or support. And every therapy session, every text, every joke at my expense, every email and sarcastic comment, I'd saved it. Not out of spite. Just instinct. I never knew why I kept those records. Until now. I had everything I needed. That week, I moved out quietly. Rented a short-term apartment under my name only. Took only what I owned before the marriage, my clothes, my books, my personal electronics, and the old photos from when I actually smiled in them. I closed our joint account and transferred the remainder to an escrow account flagged for legal proceedings. Froze the credit card she used under my name. Transferred utilities into her name. Vanessa came home to a house that suddenly had empty drawers and no internet. She texted me, "Where are you?" I didn't answer. The next day, she sent 3 more messages. "Is this some kind of tantrum?" I didn't mean what I said, Ethan. If you needed space, you could have just said so. Still, I said nothing. By the 3rd day, I had my lawyer send her the divorce papers, served directly to the house, addressed to her by name. I didn't include a note. She called that night. I let it ring, then blocked her number. The thing is, Vanessa thought she had all the power. She built her entire personality around the assumption that she was the star of every room, every story, every relationship. I was supposed to orbit her, be grateful just to be near her glow. She didn't realize she'd been slowly stepping off the edge of a cliff, and now gravity was doing its thing. Within a week, she tried reaching me through mutual friends. Jenna texted me, asking if everything was okay. I told her, in the plainest terms, I'm getting divorced. Jenna's response? Finally. That was all she said. And that one word hit harder than any long-winded sympathy ever could. 2 days later, Vanessa's Instagram turned dark. No stories. No brunch selfies. No inspirational quotes about growth and self-love. 3 days after that, I got an email from her personal address. "Ethan, please. I don't understand what's happening. Can we talk?" I didn't answer. She sent another email the next day, this one longer. Apologies. Claimed she didn't mean what she said. That she was just venting in therapy. That she thought I liked when she teased me. That I was overreacting. That I was blowing up our whole life over one comment. That line was almost funny. Because it wasn't one comment. It was years of comments. Years of being chipped away like I was a slab of stone, and she was sculpting me into someone she could laugh at. She thought I'd come back. That I always did. That I needed her. But I didn't. I had everything I needed. And now, I had something she never expected. Silence. She couldn't stand it. The silence broke her faster than any shouting match ever could. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I didn't post anything online or try to win the breakup. I just vanished from her world and took the foundation with me. Vanessa had never been alone a day in her life. There was always someone there to catch her. Her parents, her endless carousel of friends, exes, bosses who found her charming, and, for the last 5 years, me. I had been her cushion, her constant. The one who picked up the slack when she forgot to pay bills, who reminded her of appointments, who made sure there was always food in the fridge and gas in the car. She once told a friend, "Ethan's the only person I trust not to let me fall." That was the problem. Because the moment I stepped away, everything began to fall. It started with the utilities. She called the electric company when the lights went out and found out the account had been transferred. The gas? Same story. Water? Internet? All now in her name. Her credit wasn't exactly great, and the deposits weren't cheap. Then came the joint credit card, canceled permanently. She messaged me, "Why would you do this to me?" I didn't reply. A week after the papers were served, her lawyer reached out to mine. They were shocked, absolutely stunned, at the prenup. They called it aggressive. My lawyer called it airtight. She had no claim to spousal support. No claim to the house. no claim to my accounts, and no documented contributions to any shared assets. Vanessa had assumed she'd walk away with at least half. She didn't know I'd kept everything separate, legally and financially. She never noticed because she never bothered to look. She asked for mediation. I declined. She asked if we could pause and talk first. I declined. She then tried the next best thing, sympathy. I miss you. I know I made mistakes. We were supposed to be forever. I was just scared. You were getting better, and I felt left behind. Each message read like she was digging through old scripts trying to find one that still worked. But they all bounced off. Meanwhile, my house, was listed for sale. She had 30 days to vacate after the papers were filed. She tried to fight it, but the deed was in a trust with no loopholes. She had zero standing. On day 29, Jenna texted me. She's packing. I don't think it hit her until now. Vanessa moved into a small, one-bedroom apartment across town. No washer-dryer, no garage, no office space, just enough room for her and her vanity. She'd posted some photos online at first, tried to make it look like a fresh start. But the comments weren't what she expected. Friends asked what happened, why I wasn't in any photos, why she looked tired. People noticed. People always notice. And she didn't like being the one left. 2 weeks later, she showed up at my new apartment. I didn't tell her where I lived. I still don't know how she found it. Maybe Jenna told her, or maybe she just stalked enough friends until she narrowed it down. I heard the knock and looked through the peephole. There she was, hair tied up, no makeup, hoodie, not her usual performance. She didn't look smug. She looked hollow. I didn't open the door. She knocked again, and again, then finally slid a folded piece of paper under the door. It said, I don't know who I am without you. I don't know how I got here, but I know I want to fix it. Please let me fix it. I stared at the note for a long time. Then I picked it up and dropped it into the trash. The truth was, she didn't know who she was without me. She just didn't like that person. She wasn't looking to fix us. She was looking for a reset button, a soft landing. But I wasn't a landing pad anymore. I was done carrying someone who only saw me as a stepping stone to something more exciting. She said I was boring, that I didn't light her up, that I was predictable, routine, safe. And maybe I was. But I was also the reason she ever had peace to begin with. She didn't realize the boring guy was the one holding everything together until the moment he let go. The desperation came in waves. At first, she tried subtle. The I miss you messages, the carefully worded emails, the nostalgic photos she started posting on Instagram, sunsets, coffee mugs, Polaroids from old vacations we took together, always captioned with something vague like, some chapters are harder to close than others. When that didn't work, she shifted to guilt. I don't know why you're doing this, Ethan. You're not like this. You don't ghost people. We had 5 years together. Don't they mean anything to you? Still, I said nothing. Then came the threats, clumsy ones, born of panic. You know, if I really wanted to, I could tell people some things that'd make you look bad. People already think it's weird how fast you ran away. I guess I never really knew you. But she didn't have anything. And we both knew it. So the threats evaporated quickly, replaced by something worse, begging. She called from a new number. I didn't answer. Then she left a voicemail, just her breathing for a second before whispering, please. The next morning, she sent a long email. Nearly 2,000 words. She called herself stupid. Said she was scared of how stable I was, because she'd never had stability growing up, and didn't know how to trust it. She said I made her feel safe, and instead of being grateful, she resented it. That she was never good at receiving love unless it came with chaos. She admitted she thought I'd never leave. That I didn't have it in me. That when I finally did, it shook her. That she was unraveling. Then came the line that stood out most. I know I said you were boring. But the truth is, I was just terrified you were better than me. That line should have made me feel something. Some flicker of justice. Of closure. But all I felt was a hollow sort of relief. Because finally, she wasn't performing. She wasn't charming. She wasn't smirking. She was just being honest. Probably for the first time in our entire marriage. She started asking our mutual friends to talk to me. Jenna reached out again, this time with a voicemail. I don't want to meddle, Ethan, she said, but she's not okay. I think she really thought you'd never leave. I think part of her still doesn't believe this is real. I texted Jenna back. It's real. She made sure of it. She replied, I know. I'm on your side. I just thought you'd want to know. And I appreciated that. But I didn't change course. Meanwhile, Vanessa's life kept cracking at the seams. She couldn't keep up with the bills on her apartment. She picked up extra shifts at a marketing job she used to brag about being too creative for. The friends she used to host parties with stopped inviting her to things. Some of them had known me too long to pretend they didn't see what she did. Her parents reached out to me once. Her mom emailed, saying they didn't want to take sides, but hoped I'd consider reconciliation. I didn't respond. Not because I was being petty, because there was nothing left to say. 2 weeks ago, she sent the last message I ever received from her. This is the last time I'll try. I know I ruined things. I know I broke something I can't fix. But I never stopped loving you. I just didn't know how to show it. I was awful, but I'm still me. And I miss you. Please, if there's even a sliver of a chance, talk to me. I read it. Twice. Then I deleted it. She didn't love me. She loved the version of me that made her life easier, quieter, more convenient. She loved being centered in someone else's orbit. But the moment that someone asked for love in return, she shut down, pushed away, mocked it, and called it boring. And now? Now she was drowning in the silence she created. I had no interest in throwing her a lifeline. She tried one more time. A letter, handwritten, slipped under the door of my building. Not even in an envelope, just folded over once and creased unevenly, like she wrote it in a hurry and didn't trust herself to rewrite it if she messed up. Her handwriting was messier than I remembered. Loopy, rushed, with smudged ink at the corners. I almost didn't read it. But I did. Not because I had any hope left. I didn't. But because I wanted to know what her final version of the story was. It started like this. I know you think I'm just doing this because I lost. But that's not why. I'm doing this because I finally understand what I had. And what I destroyed. She wrote that she missed me when she cooked. How her food never tasted as good as when we cooked together. That the nights were too quiet. That the silence she once begged for now felt like a punishment. She said she walked into the old restaurant where we had our third date and had to leave because they sat her at our table. She cried in the parking lot. Said she kept expecting me to show up, like I always did when she pushed too hard. But I never came. She wrote, I was wrong about everything. About what I needed, about what you gave, about what love really is. You weren't boring. You were consistent, gentle, patient, real. And I threw it away because I thought cruelty made me interesting. She asked to talk. One conversation. One dinner. No expectations, just closure, she said. And for a second, I felt the flicker, not of love, not of wanting her back, but of memory. Of the life I spent years trying to build. The life I thought we shared. But memory is a liar when you're tired. And I wasn't tired anymore. I folded the letter and placed it on my desk. Not because I was keeping it, but because I needed to look at it one more time before I let it go. That night, I sat in the quiet of my new apartment, lights dimmed, soft jazz playing from the Bluetooth speaker, the one she always hated because she said it made her feel like we were in a waiting room. And I thought, I like this. I like this quiet. I like me. I typed out one reply. Not angry. Not cruel. Just final. You were right. I am boring. That's why life without you is so peaceful. Then I hit send. Blocked the address. Shut the laptop. I stood up. Made myself a cup of tea. Took it to the balcony and watched the city breathe. Cars passed. Lights flickered on in other apartments. Somewhere someone was laughing. I closed my eyes and just breathed. She hasn't contacted me since. I don't expect her to. Not anymore. And maybe someday I'll look back on all this and wonder if I was too cold, too final, too harsh. But right now, I feel nothing but stillness. And maybe I don't know if I did the right thing. But I finally slept through the night. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button.